Hello, thank you for joining me today. My name is Allison, and I'm a member of the board of the Community Asian Theater of the Sierra, CATS. I'm also an illustrator and author for the book My First Cell Phone Rules, which is about a hippopotamus that learns phone etiquettes from his friends. Today we're going to be doing a tutorial and learning how to paint a paper crane, and then after we're done using watercolor to paint it, we're going to be adding Zentangle on top of it. So hopefully you enjoy this tutorial. If at any point you feel that you're falling behind or that I'm going too fast, feel free to pause the video so that we can continue the next steps together. All right, next let's look at the materials that you'll need. For this project, you'll need watercolor paints. I borrowed these from my daughters, a pencil, some type of marker. So you can choose a Sharpie if you'd like that for the outlines, but I really like to use a thin or a fine tip marker, such as this one or a Sharpie, and these are both black, and also a paintbrush. This is the size paintbrush you'll need, so you can tell according to the size on my hand. Some water, so I have a jar of water right here, a paper towel, or if you have a cloth diaper you can use one of those, and also some mixed media paper or watercolor paper. So the one that I'm using is 9 by 12, but really you can use any size that you want, and the reason you want either watercolor or mixed media paper is because if you use something like printer paper, then it will actually bleed right through the paper, and a lot of times you'll end up with those curled edges, and the reason is because your paper is super saturated and it'll dry all bumpy. So you want a heavier paper. All right, let's get started. To begin, I started with an image from our board member, Patty Lum, and she folded this paper crane, and you may have seen this on our website or in the newspaper. So I just thought this would be a great piece to use. So we're not going to be tracing it, but instead I'm going to show you how to draw this piece. So I have this already done, if you can see the light sketches on here. What I'd like you to do is to use your pencil to draw this. Now, the reason I'm going to be using a Sharpie is because I want you to be able to see the lines. So I've already drawn lines on here, but you're not able to see it because the lines are so light. So I'm going to move these items aside, and I'm going to start drawing with my Sharpie, but again, you're going to be using a pencil. And the first line we're going to do, let's go ahead and choose an area in the middle of your paper. And we're going to draw a line that's about 1 inch long, like that. And from there, I am going to create a V shape on the back side of that. So I'm going to do a V, and then on the other section of the V, instead of stopping at the exact same length, I'm actually going to double that and go down a little bit further. All right, from there, I'm going to draw a line up towards the first line that we started, and I'm going to put a dot so you can see where I'm trying to get to. So there's a dot right there, and I'm going to draw a straight line from the bottom back up. So now it looks like a Z, and then I'm going to draw another line that's not quite parallel to this line above it. So I'll put another dot so you can see where I'm trying to go. So it just goes up just a little bit, and then a line back down. We're going to be meeting two lines right here. So I'll draw one line down and then another. All right, and let me go ahead and get a little bit closer with my camera so that you can see. Whoops. Here you go. So hopefully that's a little bit easier to see. So right now we're creating the body of the crane, and since we want to have this be a very recognizable image, we're going to actually be drawing the tail next. So I'm going to put a dot to show you where I'm trying to get to. So my dot's way up here, and you can see the size that we're doing here all the way to the top. Now I want my line to go from the top all the way down and meet the other lines that we just completed. So I'm going to draw a line straight down like that, and then I'm going to draw another line to make a full triangle from this point all the way down here to the line that we already had finished. So we're going to draw a line all the way down. There you go, a nice pointed line. So that's the crane's tail. The next, I'm going to work on the wing that's in the front of the crane. So for this one, how I like to look at this, I'm going to go from this line right here. I'm thinking about halfway. I'm going to draw a line in my mind straight down so that I can create a dot right here. And then I'm going to show you where that's going to connect. So for this line, I'm going to be going from the tail to the dot, just like that. And then let's create another line from that dot. I'm going to put one, let's see, actually I'm going to hold off for there. I'm going to leave it right there, and I'm going to draw the crane's neck. So I know that for my crane, I do want the top to end about right here, so you can see that dot. And so I'm going to go ahead and draw from about the middle of the body, like this line right here. We're going from that middle and going straight up to the top of the head of the crane. Okay, so from there, I'm going to go ahead and add a dot about 1/2 inch down so I can see where I'm trying to go. Now I'm not drawing a line this way, it's just a reference point. And I'm going to draw a line, let's see if we can get this body to connect right here as an L shape. So from here, I'm going to draw a line out a little bit. So whatever distance I drew right here, I'm going to draw the same distance here, and then I'm going to connect those lines. So the dot to the line. So that's the crane's neck. And then from there, I just need to create the point that's the head of the crane. Okay, so there we go. So I have a nice crane image. And when I'm using my pencil, if I'm not sure exactly where the line's going to go, if, I'm saying, okay, like Allison showed us that there's going to be a dot here, and I want the lines to come down, where do I go? I can do light lines and keep drawing over a few times till I get the line that I like. That's totally fine. Obviously, I can't do that with a Sharpie, so I'm just showing you where these lines go. So let's do the line I just showed you, which is the wing. So I'm going to put a dot right here so I know it's about almost halfway. It's a little bit further towards the back, and that's where I put the dot. And I'm going to go ahead and draw my lines and have them meet. So there's one there, and another line straight down here to about 1/3 of the way up the neck. So that's the back wing. Now we're going to work on the front wing, and I already have these almost connected, so I'm going to draw a line here to connect the two. And then the wings on the crane, let me show you the picture here that I have from Patty. As you can see, we're working on some interesting folds here that we're going to try to make in our drawing. So it comes out just a little bit and then back in to a point, and then out a little bit and back into a point, okay? And then what's really hard to see on the bottom here, there's a little piece that's the body, so we're going to add that in as well. Okay, so we're going to use what we have in our mind from here and finish our drawing of the crane. So we're going to create that little tiny line that comes out, and then we're going to draw another line that comes out over here, just like we saw in the picture. And then from this line, I'm going to draw, see that angle I just created right there? I'm going to put a little dot there so you can see where we're trying to go. And I'm going to just connect the end of this line to the dot and the end of this other line to the dot. So there we go. So we have a nice crane. And the very last thing we need is the crane body that we showed in the picture. So there we go. And if you're not happy with how your crane looks at this point, you can always pause the video here and take a look again. We also have this image on our website, and you can always print this out like I did originally, and then I traced it to figure out where the lines were. So you can do it that way, or you can do it freehand. And then the next step is we're going to begin painting. All right, so I'm going to put my watercolor paper here. Now you won't be able to see the lines very dark on my paper, but if I painted on this piece of paper, you know, it would look different than yours because I have these really dark lines on there. So again, you were supposed to do the first part with pencil, and now we're going to begin the watercolor. So I have my light sketch on my watercolor paper, and we're going to go ahead and begin. So the first thing we're going to do is get our paints ready. So I have my water right here, and I'm going to just take a little bit of water on my paintbrush, and I'm going to put that into each of my paints. So I'm going to pick this up, and depending on which color I might want to use, I'm going to put a little drop there in the purple, blue, green. And as you can see, my girls use most of the yellow, so I don't know if we'll be able to get any yellow out of there. We have an orange and a red, and so this just gets the paint ready to go. And you can use, you know, the brown and the black as well. I'm going to see if I can borrow a yellow from another paint set. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to get each of these areas nice and wet, so one at a time. So I'm going to start with the wing of the crane. So let's go ahead and get our watercolor paintbrush nice and wet. Let's go ahead and start with the top wing first. So I'm getting some water on my paintbrush, and I'm actually going to just fill in the area of the top wing with water without any paint. So I'm just going to make sure I fill all of this in. So if you can see, let's see if I can get the lighting to shine a little bit. Let's see here. There you go. You can see a little bit of the water on there. And so sometimes I need to do that in the light to see which areas are already covered and which ones need a little bit more water. So I'm just filling this in. And this part does take practice because sometimes you'll put a lot of water on, and you basically want to put enough water that it won't run down the paper. But you want to have enough on there so that when you put the paint on, it will swim around. So I'm just filling this in. And then sometimes, you know, I'll move it around and check. I'll say, okay, it looks like I got most of it, but there's an area that might need a little more water. I can always add some more in. Okay, so once this area is nice and wet, I'm going to go ahead and choose a color. So for this first part, I think I'll go ahead and choose red. So I'm going to go ahead and dip my paintbrush in the red and kind of move it around a little to pick up some paint. And then I'm just going to dab the red right on top. And as you can see there, oh, look at that. There's a lot of water right there. It's going to get the red to go swimming in each of these areas. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and put the red in this area. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to mix two different colors. So I already have red in here, putting a lot of red in here. And you can decide if you want to leave a certain area without red in it and then add another color. So like I decided I'm going to leave this far side without a lot of the red. So I think what I'm going to do for this far side is I think I'm going to just mix some warm colors together and add some orange in here. So I'm going to get some of the orange on my brush, and I'm just going to dab the orange right across. And as you can see, it's starting to come off my brush there and into the water. I'm getting some nice colors. Okay, so I have plenty of orange in there. And then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to leave that be for a second, and I'm going to pick up my paper and let that move around the paper a little bit. So just kind of move that around, see if I can get that red to come up to the orange. Maybe get the orange to mix a little bit with the red. And the reason I want to do this is because I want to get some really nice colors where they're mixing. And that's the fun and the joy of watercolor. With other colors, we mix a lot of the colors and we don't let them do as much on their own. So I might just mix it a little bit, just a little back and forth. maybe up and down a little. Now I can see there's two spots there that didn't have enough water in them. That's okay. I can just dab a little bit more water onto my brush and go right over those areas and it'll mix together. All right, so that's the first piece there. Now the next section I want to use, I don't want to paint anything that's touching the first area. So I wouldn't want to paint, you know, the neck of the crane, the body, or the tail, because if I paint them right now, then all the colors will bleed together. So I'm going to choose a different area, and I think right now I'm going to go ahead and choose the center wing area. So I can choose any color I want, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to balance this out a little bit. So I'm just going to take my brush, and again, I'm just going to paint clear water on here. And while I'm painting, I can start thinking about what colors I might want to use on this. So a lot of times when we're doing artwork, we do want to make sure the colors are nice and balanced. So if I used a red up here, I might want to use a red down there. So I think I will choose red, but I'm going to choose a little bit different. So I'm going to start with my red again. So dab it in. And for this piece, I'm just going to, yeah, I think I'll just have it start down here, work my way across to some different dabs of red. I think I need a little bit more. I want to get nice and red there, but I'm going to leave the top so that I can use a different color. And just to show you how this might look with a different color, you know, maybe I'm going to go ahead and choose some purple. So purple is one of my favorites. Dabbing that in the purple. I've got purple on my brush. I'm just going to go ahead and dab that up at the top. So notice I don't start in the middle. I'm starting away from the other color so that they can meet together and mingle right there in the middle. So I'm just going to go across the top. I can kind of put some colors in now. So I like how that's turning out. And then right now I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get some of these colors to mix together. So I'm bringing the red up to the purple and the purple down to the red. Just going, just taking my time and enjoying this process. And then as you can see again, I have some areas where the color's not mixing, so I can add a little water and just dab right there. And I can also see up here that I didn't quite get to where the pencil mark is, but that's okay. I can just dab that with my paintbrush. Dab it over here too if I want. Maybe one right there. There we go. And I'm just letting those colors mix, and then I'm just going to let that sit there. All right, so I have one more area I can do right now. So I'm going to wash my brush, and the last area I can do at this time is this little tiny triangle down at the bottom that's part of the bird's body. So I can choose any color I want there. And I think I'm going to go ahead and use the orange. That might be a really fun one to use right here. So we'll just add a little orange, make it nice and bright. There we go. And again, if I wanted to add another color, that one's kind of small, but if I wanted to add another, I could choose something like a dab of yellow. So the yellow I actually borrowed from another set because this other yellow is gone, but I can just add a little dab of yellow, let that swim around a little bit. While I'm waiting, I can wash my brush off and just let it sit for a second. So we have to pause for a moment and wait for this to dry before we do the next steps. Otherwise, again, all the water color will bleed together. And so while we're waiting, we can just think about, you know, the way that we'll know that this is dry is, well, like right now you can see it's very wet. So you can see it's shining. So that's one way we know that it's wet. The other way, once it's pretty much dry and we can't really tell is this wet or dry, you can actually touch the watercolor once it seems that it's dry. If it's cool to the touch, then that means that you should wait a little bit longer. But if it doesn't feel cool, then that means it's totally dry. So at this point, let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then I will come back and show you the next steps. So it looks to me that mine is dried now. It's been about 20 minutes since the last recording, and if I look in the light, it's no longer reflecting as I move it. And so I look closely, it looks pretty dry, and I can go ahead and lightly touch it. So the top one is definitely dry. The bottom one feels a little tiny bit wet, but it should be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit more water on my brush, and I'm going to go ahead, let's go ahead and do the back portion here. So I'm going to paint the tail. I'm just going to add a whole bunch of water in here. And again, you know, we're playing around with how much is too much water. So we want to make sure it's enough to cover the area and so that the water or the paint can swim. So we're just going to go ahead and take our time with this. But not so much that it'll go all over the paper when we pick it up to move it. And now that this section's dry, I can actually get up close to it with my new section of water, and it will not bleed over. So it's just if it's really wet, then it will, you know, they'll bleed. Another thing that you can do, you can also leave a tiny space in between, and that way you know that they won't go into each section, and then we can fix that later with a marker. All right, so this next section, I think I'm going to use some greens in here. So I'm going to take a little bit of green, load up my brush, and I think I'm going to have green down at the bottom here. So I'm going to tap some green in. Ooh, do you see how much that moved? You can see how it's just swimming through here, which is exactly what I want it to do. So lots of green in here. And again, you can choose any color you want. I'm going to clean my brush off, and then the next color I'm going to choose is the yellow. So again, I'm using yellow from another source because this one is all used up. So I'm just going to tap the yellow down here at the point and see if I can get this to cover that whole area. And then as it's getting close together, I'm going to swirl these around. So I'm going to set my brush down for a moment and see if I can get the green to meet the yellow. There we go. Nice. And then I just pick it up and move this around back and forth till we get all the colors all mixed together in there. And I like what's happening with these colors. I'm going to clean my brush off and make sure the water's nice and clear, and I'm going to go ahead and do this next section here, which is the neck and the head of the crane. So we're going to just go ahead and move this and get the clear water on the crane. And hopefully you're just finding this to be very relaxing as you're moving through this. And I'm just trying to get all of the corners filled in, as much of a point as I can. And then also checking the light to see if I missed any areas. So we're just putting the water down here, making sure this area is all wet. And then again, we can start thinking about the colors we want to use for this section. And I think I am going to continue with what I did on the other side. So I am going to add a little bit of the green and yellow. And I like how it turned out with the green a little closer to the tail there. So I'm going to get some green first and just going to go ahead and dab some green on here. See if I can get that to swim a little bit. Some more green. And just do some dabs in here. There we go. And then the next color would be that yellow. So I'm going to get some more yellow. And just dab the yellow in. Ooh, that one went really nice. When I put it in, it was like it went nicely all over the place. So that's what I like. Okay, make sure I get the tip here just nice and easy there. Get along this end right there. Okay, then I'm going to take a moment and pick my paper up and just see if I can get the paints to move. So I'll hold this up as closely as I can. So I'm just getting the green to move and go within the yellow, and then kind of move that around a little bit. Not too much because I want the colors to mix, but I don't want them to blend completely because I really like seeing where one color ends and the other meets. And then as you can see, I need to add a little bit right here, a little water, and then a little bit here up top too. Kind of mix that in. All right, there we go. And just let that move around a little bit more. So kind of like that. And then I'll let it sit for a little bit. Oh, a little bit more right there. Okay, so I'm going to let that sit, and I'm going to think about the next area. So I think I'm going to do this area right down here, and let me get some more clear water, put it on, and put it on the paper, spread the clear water around. And really the most important thing about this is just enjoying the process. You know, it's kind of fun to do this and then to try different things with the different colors, and later with the different Zentangles. So, you know, you might end up doing quite a few of these, but hopefully you're finding this to just be really relaxing. All right, so we're done with that. And for this last one, and I'm really going to think about the colors I want to use here. So I think I might balance this out. I kind of like the rules of 3. I might use some more green again. I like the green, but I might mix it up a little. So I might have a little green here on the inside. So I can choose to do some green here. And if I want, you know, I can decide if I want to go up here by the end of the wing, or like where it's attached to the body, or I can just do one side and mix it with the other, but I'm going to go that way. And then I think what I'm going to do is use a little bit of the blue. We haven't used the blue yet, so I'm going to grab a little blue on my brush and start down here at the wingtip. Ooh, did you see how that expanded right into the wing there? I like that. So here we go, just getting some blue in here. Just going to get a little more blue. And just a few taps, tap, tap. Look how blue that is. That's really pretty. I like that color. Do a few taps down here. The more times I'm tapping, the more paint's going in the water. And now I'm going to mix it around a little bit. Just kind of move it back and forth so the colors can come together. So holding that up so you can see all those colors mixing. And then I'm just going to place it back down and just let it dry a little bit. And since I added some blue here, I think I'll probably add some more blue into the body of the crane. But I have to pause one more time. Actually, it's going to be 2 more times because I have 2 sections here that need to be painted. So I'm going to let this section dry, and these are really wet right now. And then I'm going to wait to paint this middle area. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so I was away for a little bit, but I just wanted to show you this part right here is still pretty wet, and so is this part over here. And I just wanted to show you what I was talking about. You know, if 2 areas are still wet and, you know, you've waited a while, you can still paint, but you want to make sure the water doesn't touch the next section. So I'm just going to put some clear water on here. And again, I'm leaving a little space between the color that I already have down and the water that I'm adding. And by doing that, it will not bleed into the next section. However, if I don't outline it later in black, then what'll happen is I'll see a line where things are, you know, just not touching. And I might not want that white line in there. So let me just go ahead and add the water on right here. And you have to get a feel for this water and how much you're adding. So it also depends on the heat. So like in the summer, it will dry a little bit faster. There's been a few times I've tried to add water onto my paper and it's almost dry from the time I start on one end till the time I get to the other end. And then in the winter, it takes a little longer for each section to dry. And that's okay because you can just paint little bits at a time and then, you know, get up and get some stuff done around the house and then come back to it later. I always like to do a couple of deep breaths before I begin painting again because it helps to get my mind set and to also just, you know, just to find this more relaxing. Okay, so I'm coming over to this side. Again, I'm going to stay away from the part that's already wet. So I'm getting pretty close to it, but I'm trying to make it so that my lines don't go over. Now, if the line does go over, it's okay. You know, it'll bleed into the next section, and we can fix that either with letting it dry and kind of you put some water on your paintbrush and go over it again, and it'll erase some of the color. So you could do something like that, or later on, when we add the Zentangle, it might not matter that it's bled into each section as much. Okay, so let's go ahead and try the next part here. Let's do a little bit of, I think I'm going to do a blue and purple one. So I'm going to start with a little bit of, let's go ahead and do some purple at the top. I don't want to put purple right here at the bottom because then those two sections will join together and we won't be able to tell that they're two different sections. So I don't want to put two of the same color together. But I can go ahead and add some purple here at the top. And again, I'm dabbing over this a few times, trying to get some of that purple to come out. And then I wash my brush off, get a little bit of the blue. So load that up on my paintbrush. I'm just going to dab that in. Ooh, look at that blue. That's a really pretty blue right there. So dab, dab. Let's go across here. Maybe down here as well. Get this corner. Okay, so we've got the colors there. I'm going to wash my brush off and kind of set it aside and just mix those colors together. Just moving that paint around a little bit. Okay, so when watercolor dries, it does turn a little bit lighter than the color you're seeing now. So if you want something to be darker, for instance, I think I want to add a little bit, right here I added the red color and then the yellow was mixed in. It kind of doesn't show much red anymore. So what I might do, I might say, you know, I'm looking at this, I kind of like, I would like it to have a little more red up here at the tip. So what I can do is I can just add some more water over it again. And I don't want to put too much on. If I go in and scrub it, it'll actually take some of the paint off. But if I just do another layer of water and I kind of bring it down here, and then I want to add a little bit more red, I can go ahead and do that. So I have some red in here, a few dabs up here at the top. Bring it down a little bit. Get some more red on my brush. Oh, there we go. Now the red's coming out. Dab it along here. And again, just let it move around a little bit here, just to mix those in a little bit. So that's kind of the fun thing about watercolor. I can go over stuff. It's okay to make a mistake. It becomes part of the artwork and it's no longer a mistake. It's meant to be that way. So, all right. So I'm going to let this dry for a little bit. There is one more section over here that I have to wait for that to dry. Or I could do, if I have a very steady hand, I could get this little section wet right here and just add a little bit of paint in this area. And again, I can think about which color choice I want to do. Let's see, what haven't we done as much of? I don't want to do purple because it's right next to it. So there's a lot of the same colors there. So I could even play around a little bit and say, you know, I'm going to go ahead and this will be a little dark area. Maybe I want to do a little bit of black in there. I don't know. Let's give it a try. Just add a little black dot in here. All right, perfect. I think that's how I want to keep that one. So I'm just going to let that dry a little bit. Fix that corner. There we go. So I'm going to let this dry. And once it's dry, we're going to be adding something called a Zentangle, and I'll show you that in a moment. While we're waiting for our crayon to dry, we can start looking at something called a Zentangle. And these are some Zentangle patterns. I wrote the name up here. So Zentangle Patterns. I just did a Google search and this is what popped up. And as you can see, as we scroll down, there's just a whole bunch of different patterns here that we can try. So the idea behind Zentangle is that we just want to stay really calm and relaxed and to really just stay in the moment. So we practice breathing and we think about what we might want to do on the paper with a pen. The nice thing about it, for instance, if we look at something like this pattern right here, is you're just creating some of those swoop marks and then you're just relaxing and coloring it in and thinking about what you're doing. If you decide that you are tired of this design, you can move on to another one, like one right here. And you can try different designs on your art piece. So once we let it dry, I'll show you how to incorporate some of these, but it's really nice to have a chance to look at these and think about which ones you like. So it's been a couple of minutes, or about half an hour maybe, since the last recording. I was outside with my kids. Time was flying by. So as you can see, it dried here, but I can see some of the lines, and maybe I don't want those lines. So what I can do is take some water, just plain water on my brush, and if I just go over this area, it's going to start removing some of the harsh lines in there. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's starting to almost erase part of it. So I can do that. I can also leave it if I don't mind it, because what we're going to be doing is adding the Zentangle over it. Next, I'm going to take my black marker, and the one that I'm using, I got it from this set right here, which I really like. These seem to be really good. They didn't bleed a whole bunch when I was drawing with them, and they come in different sizes within one pack. So the one I'm going to use is the smallest one right here. I also use these in the books in the book that I made. So I can choose any area that I want to start, and I'm just going to think about one of the Zentangles that I like. So let's see. You know, one that I kind of like, let's just go ahead and draw. I'm going to start just anywhere. You can choose any section you want. In each section, you're going to do a different pattern. So for this first one, let's see. I like the, let's go ahead and do some of the, like a crisscross design. So I'm going to do some different patterns. So this one, I'm just going to go ahead and draw a zigzag right along here. And let's say that, you know, I'm staying in the moment and I'm working on my breathing with Zen. And so I might want to think about adding some different size lines. So instead of just doing a whole bunch of the same size, if I drew another line and let's say that I color it in, it then makes this a thicker line. And then let's say that I'm really enjoying this process. I just, you know, find it really relaxing, and I just am breathing through this and thinking about how much I enjoy, you know, just staying in the moment. I might decide that my body and mind are telling me I'm a little bit tired of doing this specific design, and I can switch it up by adding something to it. So let me just finish this section right here. And I might think, I don't want a whole bunch of these, but maybe I want to add some dots as well. So I just finished this section here, and I could decide that I want to add a thin line. Like if I'm tired of doing the thick line, maybe I'm adding, you know, just a thin line here. And as I'm going through, I might think, you know what, I'm not feeling this pattern, and that's okay. We can go back in and add different things. So at this point, if I don't like this, I can add dots in the next layer. And that becomes part of my pattern. So I could do that in the wing section, and then in another area, I might like a different design. So up here, let's say, you know, I'm doing this really sharp line. The next section, I might want to do something a little bit more curvy. Maybe I even want to add some polka dots. So, you know, this section, I'm thinking when I'm looking at this, I kind of like the idea of polka dots down here. So I can do circles and maybe create like a bubble look. Do a whole bunch of bubbles here. And maybe partway through, I might decide, you know what? I want these bubbles to have some different sizes. You know, I can do that as well. I'm adding the bubbles in here. Up here, I might decide that I really like some different designs and I want to do some arches. So, you know, I might think about this and like, okay, I like adding an arch, like maybe a little rainbow, a rainbow look here. So I'm doing that. I could add another arch here. And then as I come up, I might think, okay, just adding one right here. And I just do this for each of my sections, thinking about what I might want to create. And I'm just trying to remember to stay calm and breathe and think about what I'm doing in each section. So there's some examples of Zentangles that I'm doing on this bird, and you can try some different ideas. And again, if you're not sure what to do, you can start by looking online, just doing a Google search to find some ideas of different Zentangles. Let's see, move on to the next one. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and allow you to work on your Zentangles, and then I'll show you my final product as soon as it's done. All right, so I'm all done with my drawing now, and I've added all the Zentangles on top of my crane. And so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and outline my crane. And you can choose what you're going to use. Now, if you decide that you want to use something like a Sharpie, go ahead and test it out first, maybe on a different sheet of paper, and make sure that it doesn't bleed too much on your paper. If that is the case, you can always fill this in with a different watercolor if you'd like, or you can use your marker and draw in it quite a bit. So I have another marker here. This one's a little bit thicker, and it's from that same pack that I had earlier. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just draw my lines over it. So you can do this if your paint is close together and you don't feel you need the lines, you do not need to add this step. But I'm going to go ahead and add a line right here. It just kind of makes the edges nice and cleaned up. If you feel like you might make a mistake by going crooked, you can always do something by, like you can get a ruler or another straight edge if that helps you. And so for me, I just, you know, it was a little bit bent there. I went ahead and curved it just a little bit to make that work. And then I'm going to go in here and just fill in these lines as well. Oops, I'm going to move my paint out of the way. Now that we're done with that. Here we go. And if there was some extra white there, I can always go over that again and make a thicker line if I need to do that. Go over these 3 lines, a little angle there. I guess it was kind of 4. That's part of the fold of the bird there. But we want to make sure we accent that. Just come down this way for the wing. And as you can see, there's a little bit of white area here. I can just make this line a little tiny bit thicker and make sure I fill in that area. There we go. And I like to turn my image around when I'm drawing, just so that I can draw my lines coming down. It's a little bit easier for me because then I can see where I'm going. And then we'll fill this area and point there. Okay. For this one, I can go ahead and draw up. It looks, or like a cross. It naturally feels just fine with my hand, so I'll do that. And add this one over here. And this one's a little bit thicker. So clear that up. Outline the tail. try to get a nice point here. For this one, because if you start here, you can do the line. You might want to turn it around too, so you can start at the tip here and just try to work your way down. And whoops, that one missed it a little bit. I'll hold it up so you can see. So right here, you can see that there's a little bit of white there. So I'm just going to go over that line again and just make it just a tiny bit thicker. Not too much. There we go. Cleaned up that line. And then let's see if we can get this back in focus. Let's turn it around, finish the last two lines. Let's see. Let me try to get this in focus again just so you can see. So there we go. There we go. Nice and slow. All right. There we go. Now it's much better with the focus. So I'll go ahead and draw another line here. And as long as I can see where I'm going, I can go that direction. I'm going to turn it one more time for this line. I hope I'm not making you too dizzy. And there we go. All right, so we are all done, and I look forward to seeing what yours look like. Maybe we can set up some type of a post, like if it's on Facebook or something, you can post down below in the comments. I'd love to see the different cranes that you create. So I hope you really enjoyed this, and I hope you just remain very peaceful and calm throughout the rest of your day. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.